First of all, excuse the voice, I'm a little sick, but life goes on. I've been daily driving the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 6 for a bit now, and let me just say, this phone made using a phone fun again. I completely underestimated how much I was going to love this device, but it also somehow feels both futuristic and oddly frustrating at the same time. Let's break this down as we always do by its design, display, battery, camera, performance, and features, the highs and the lows, and whether this is worth dropping over $1,000 on in 2025. Starting off with the design, Samsung didn't reinvent the flip phone with the Z Flip 6, but it definitely refined it. If you've held the Flip 5, this feels nearly identical. It has brushed aluminum sides, Gorilla Glass Victus 2 panels, IP48, yes, now it's technically dust resistant too, and super satisfying hinge mechanics. That is actually one of the strangest things about this phone to me. Technically, it is less efficient than a normal slab phone. I mean, for the most part. And trust me, we are going to talk about the outer screen a little bit later, but you really need to open the device to use it to its full capacity. But even though it's an extra step, opening and closing it's genuinely a fun experience. When it's folded, it's a little bit chunky and it definitely looks expensive, and it should at this price point. But when it's unfolded, it's surprisingly sleek. The bezels are symmetrical, the corners are nicely rounded, and the crafted black finish on mine looks and feels great. I use this phone without a case and I have no issues with it slipping out of my hand. The buttons are clicky and well placed. Samsung really nailed the industrial design here. I also love that it's slightly more narrow than a normal phone and it makes one-handed use a lot easier. But let's address a potential annoying issue to some. You still need to open this with two hands. Some people have found a way around this by kind of sticking their thumb into the crease here and then kind of swinging it open, but personally I wouldn't recommend doing this unless you want to damage your screen. Regardless of some software improvements that bring functionality to the front display, I find it mostly unusable to do simple tasks like replying to a text, responding to emails, or doing anything that involves using a keyboard. I mean, you can still do it, but I mean, look at it. It could definitely be improved. I don't consider this a deal breaker, but for some of you out there, it might be. If your focus is efficiency, this is not the device for you. But if your focus is fun, keep watching. How about that display? Samsung's display game is still unmatched. The 6.7-inch AMOLED main screen is absolutely gorgeous at 120 Hz, it's very bright at nearly 1500 nits, and it has punchy colors, great viewing angles, and smooth as butter. It bends in half and still looks better than a lot of regular slabs out there. This is peak Samsung display tech. And even though it does somewhat distort the content, one useful trick that I use is that I enjoy closing it just very slightly to be able to still watch full screen media with the device propped up. You can still also use flex mode, but it obviously will look a little bit smaller. I'll be honest, flex mode is a feature, but I don't really use it that much. The cover screen, however, this to me is the biggest downside of this device. Samsung has done a lot to improve it with software, but it still feels like wasted potential. I would love to see Samsung make this larger for the Flip 7 and add the ability to have full functionality of your device. In the same way that you can use the front screen on the foldable phones, they should try to figure out something for the flip phones. I completely understand that there's going to be challenges with the scaling and sizing and things like that, but if any company can get around these challenges, it's got to be Samsung. Now, it's not all bad. There is a workaround for this, but it's still not perfect. If you go into Good Lock and then find Multistar, tap on I Heart Galaxy Foldable and then launch your widget, add the apps that you want to be able to use, and there is an example of how it looks. You can even play an emulator on it, which honestly is pretty cool. Battery life is one of the most improved areas on the Flip 6. I actually used to avoid buying a flip phone specifically because I always heard how bad their battery life was. But after using the Flip 6, I was genuinely surprised on how long the phone lasted. Samsung bumped up the battery level to 4000 mAh, and combined with the efficiency of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, I have had zero issues getting a full day of heavy use. I regularly get between 7 and 8 hours of screen on time doing things like taking phone calls, sending some messages, watching YouTube, taking photos and editing photos, taking videos, browsing through Reddit, emulating games, and of course Xbox Game Pass. The downside though, the charging speed. You're getting 25 watts of wired and 15 watts of wireless charging, and a full charge takes around 1 hour and 38 minutes. It's fine if you charge overnight, but in 2025, and especially in 2024 when this device was released, Samsung's conservative charging is borderline unacceptable. Samsung, please improve your charging speeds on your devices. 25 watts is not enough, and it's frankly ridiculous for a phone in this price point. But what's not ridiculous is the camera. Samsung made some great improvements with the main sensor this year. You get a 50 megapixels main sensor that takes great photos. No, it's not going to compete with the S25 Ultra or other flagship phones, but it's much better than the previous Z Flip 5's 12 megapixel sensor. It takes excellent daytime shots and decent low-light images, especially if you turn on night mode, and even gives you a usable 2x zoom, even though it is optical quality and not a true optical zoom. Samsung's image processing does a decent job. Samsung also does a great job with portrait photos. How about that front-facing camera? My recommendation, don't use it. It's a 10 megapixel sensor, but it looks pretty bad in my opinion. But you know what? It doesn't matter because a cool trick of having a flip phone is that you can use the main sensor with the cover screen instead. Selfies are where the Flip 6 shines. Using the main sensor with the cover screen as a viewfinder is the ultimate selfie experience if that's your thing. It really does make your selfie photos a lot higher quality. The ultra-wide is also still here, but it's unchanged from the previous generation, and even though I found its autofocus a bit challenging at times, it does do a good job once you get the right shot. For video, it's pretty solid. It has 4K 60 on all the lenses, stabilization is also great, and results are consistent. I would totally skip on using the front-facing camera for any kind of serious video recording, by the way. It's just a bad sensor. It's not a Galaxy Ultra camera setup, of course, but for a flip phone, it does do a great job, and Samsung improved a lot on the previous generation. For performance, you are getting a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 with 12 gigabytes of RAM, which runs perfectly buttery smooth, and it's an enjoyable experience. Everything just works. Apps open fast, mobile games, emulating games, and Xbox Game Pass run very smoothly. Samsung really did a great job optimizing the software and the hardware with the flip phone. Whether I'm using the cover screen or the main display, everything is very fluid and very fast, and I'm sure it will be for many years to come. Now let's talk software. And there is no surprise here, it is fantastic. My device is running OneUI 7 and Android 15. This has got to be possibly one of the best iterations of OneUI ever, and it works perfectly fine on the Z Flip 6. And what is also great is that Samsung committed to 7 years of software support as well, so you will have support until July of 2031, but to be completely honest, I am worried about how the foldable display and the hardware is going to last over 7 years without any major issues. I recommend you get insurance. And you also get all the customization that is offered in OneUI. You've got lock screen tweaks, edge panels, sound settings, themes, and my personal favorite, which I think is highly underrated, one-hand operation that you can find in Good Lock. This is such an underrated feature, and if you haven't tried it, give it a go. It is so useful. And of course, we have Galaxy AI here as well. Some people will say it's useless, and I get it. Every company has their own AI these days, and it can definitely sound like an empty buzzword, but Samsung does deliver some value here that I use daily. I really like the transcript assist. I find it does an even better job than the Pixel at times. Also, even though it only works in the Samsung browser, which is something I don't like because I use Chrome for the most part, I do appreciate the way that I can summarize an article and can quickly create a short summary or a more detailed one, and I like how I can quickly translate it to a different language as well. This is great because I have family and friends who don't speak any English, and this way I can share it with them. I find it does a fairly accurate job of translating as well. So here's the final verdict, and as usual, let's tally up the good and the bad, and let's be honest, the Z Flip 6 is easily one of the best flip phones you can buy right now, but it's not perfect. For the good, you get a premium design and build quality, an absolute gorgeous foldable display, respectable camera upgrades from the Z Flip 5, great battery life, amazing software with Samsung's OneUI 7, and 7 years of promised software support. And for the bad, the charging speed is insanely slow for a device released in 2024. The cover screen needs more functionality, even though it has improved significantly. I just find myself opening the phone instead, and it can be a bit on the chunky side when it's folded. Other than that, I was extremely impressed by the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 6, and I can confidently say that I recommend it. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. Is this your next phone? Should you wait a couple months for the Z Flip 7? Is there a better foldable out there that I should try? Hit that like button down below and subscribe for more if you like what I do, and I will see all of you next time.